Well, it was on Valentine's Day, but it was far from a gift of love. The Academic Staff Union of Universities, the umbrella body of lecturers in Nigerian universities, has been on an industrial action since February 14. Now, what started as an issue that would not last long has now been drawn and is in its 7th month. University undergraduates have been forced to stay out of the classroom for more than 200 days as the Nigerian government and the University Teachers Union failed to reach an agreement. Now, public university education in Nigeria, researchers say, is relatively cheaper, but the government, which bears the burden, and the staff who impart knowledge have so far been reluctant to reach a compromise. Now, meetings have been held, a case in the industrial court, multiple deadlocks have been reported, and students are yet to resume. Students, teachers, and the government are all at crossroads. What is next is our take here on VSA. Welcome, I'm Sulaiman. The Academic Staff Union of Universities in Nigeria strike reached its 7th month on September 14, and it remains one of Nigeria's longest industrial actions. University undergraduates have been denied access to sound formal education in the last 7 months. Scholarships are being missed, opportunities are wasting, delays in graduation time, and the frustration of these students is building. The Nigerian government and the University Teachers Union have been at loggerheads as they continue to disagree over the context of a good deal. Despite threats of no work, no pay by the government of Nigeria, the university teaching staff have stuck to their guns and are still demanding what they desire. Now, talks have broken down with the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Labor and Employment, and the university teachers are sticking to the guns. 2 weeks ago, in a meeting with vice chancellors of universities, it was declared that there will be an increment in the salaries of university lecturers, while the government is being cautious of committing what cannot be done. Now, Nigerian students, the main victims of the strike, are taking actions. First, it was the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway in southwest of Nigeria, one of the country's most plied highways. Then the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, also in Lagos, Nigeria's economic capital, and the message has been clear. The students are tired too, and their future is at stake. Joining me now is Dr. Dele Ashiru, is the chairman of Academic Staff Union of University at the University of Lagos chapter, and pretty much later we'll be speaking with some couple of students to let us in on what they think about the strike action. Dr. Ashiru, good to see you, and thanks for your time as always. Now, let's talk about the problem. We had you, earlier on the show. We had spoken about this, and one would have thought that by now the issues would have been resolved. Do you think the Nigerian government is doing enough to see to the end of these issues?
Although I cannot seem to hear the question, but I need to say that
I need to establish if you can hear me, Dr. Ashiru. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, good. If you can, as the question is your take. You think the government is really ready to see to an end in the impasse?
Well, it is very doubtful going by, government's reaction to first, our demands, and two, to the strike action. One would expect that a government sworn in to defend the welfare of its citizens will not sit back and allow a strike action by university teachers to linger for 7 months. Bear in mind that the agitation to get government to sign and implement an agreement we had with the Nigerian government since 2009 had caused our union several strikes. As we speak, Professor Nimi Briggs who heads the government's negotiating team, successfully renegotiated the 2009 agreement with our union. The proposal is before government. Well, we would expect that a government that has not reviewed the salaries of the best brains in its country in the last 30 years will jump at the proposal put forward by Nimi Briggs. It is shocking that in spite of the promises made by President Muhammadu Buhari, up till now, government has refused to accede to sign a document prepared by a committee put together by government itself. It shows the extent to which, the current government in Nigeria holds the people. And it's really unfortunate because in a democracy, it is expected that people elected into public office will bow to popular opinion, will bow to people's wishes. In this instance, President Muhammadu Buhari has failed to live up to that democratic expectation of a president elected by the Nigerian people to minister to its welfare.
Now let me jump in here. Dr. Ashiru. Yes, that said, let me jump in here, Dr. Ashiru. Apologies, for butting in quickly here, because there seem to be, some renewed moves. First, the Speaker of Nigeria's Parliament is meeting with, parties, and there are also some other moves by traditional rulers. Let us know, if you will, if you have word of the meeting between Speaker Gbajabiamila and parties involved. Well,
I am not in a position to relate the meeting held with the Speaker or the House of Representatives today because I am not part of that meeting. But I'm sure that the position of our union remains the same. You will recall that in 2021, the Speaker of the Federal House of Rep told the world that he wasn't going to sign off the 2021 budget unless provisions were made, budgetary allocations were made to permanently resolve the issues between ASUU and federal government. Up till now, our union cannot still explain what happened in spite of the willingness of the Speaker of the House of Representatives to, put this lingering dispute between our union and government to a closure. So we are hoping by the time the full details of the meeting held with the Speaker is made public, Nigerians will have something to cheer about, since the National Assembly is the representative of the Nigerian people. And irrespective of what a president feels, the National Assembly should be able to prevail on him to do what is right.
Well, as we await word of that meeting between the parties and the Speaker, good thing that you just spoke about the Speaker's personal desire to see that this is, resolved even before the strike started. Now, tell us, if you will, Dr. Chris Ngige, the Minister of Labour, has been speaking, and he says categorically that the Union of University Lecturers in Nigeria, that is ASUU, don't understand what collective bargaining is about. Help us make sense of what that means, because he still thinks that, ASUU should come to a middle ground with the government on these matters.
The Minister of Labour has a penchant for speaking from the two sides of his mouth. This is the same Minister of Labour who had presided over 3 different memoranda of action with our union. In fact, in civilized societies, that man who calls himself the Minister of Labour ought to have resigned a long time ago. This was a minister who signed a memorandum of action with our union in 2018, signed same in 2020, signed same in 2021, and today we are in 2022. He hasn't been able to implement the content of all the memoranda of action he signed with our union. And then he would come on air to tell the world that our union does not understand the meaning of collective bargaining. If there's anybody in Nigeria who doesn't understand what collective bargaining means, it is the Minister of Labor, the Minister of Education, and the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, because it was government that set up first the Wale Babalaki Committee, who didn't achieve anything, the Muzali Jubri Committee that was set up that gave government a proposal, which they rejected. As we speak, government also set up the Nimibrix Committee that submitted a proposal before it and also did a paid advertorial to tell the world that all the Minister of Labor and that of Education are telling Nigerians are tissues of lies. So if there's anybody who doesn't understand what collective bargaining means, it is the Minister of Labor. And it is unfortunate that we have people like Dr. Christine Ngige administering the Labor Ministry, because it is a failure on his part that a strike action will linger for 7 months, and all he can do is to grandstand when he goes to public forum to tell the world what is not. So our union understands perfectly what collective bargaining means. This is not our first attempt at collective bargaining. The shock that our union has is that we are talking to a people who pretend to be deaf and dumb. And if you are talking to people who pretend to be deaf, it will be very difficult for them to hear whatever that you say.
Well, you've been able to qualify that using the operative word there, pretense. So now let's talk, what's the difference? Because one would have thought that this is a democracy, and time was in the military, regime, one would have thought that that's why sometimes you don't make a headway. Some other Nigerians watching are wondering, asking, that these three key ministers, the Minister of Education, the Minister of Labor, and of course that of State, Festus Keyamo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, all went to schools in Nigeria. So how difficult are the issues that ASUU is bringing to the fore for the government to understand?
Thank you. The issues are not in any way difficult. It is first the political will that we lack, and two, because today Nigeria is in the hands of imperialists. Nigeria is no longer in the hands of those elected to serve their purpose. The Nigerian government is notoring to conditionalities from IMF and World Bank so that they can get more loans to run the country. The issue is that elected public officers are expected to generate ideas, innovative ideas as to how to run this society. But today we have a bunch of parasites who live and milk the state and consequently don't have ideas about how the state can run, and they leave Nigerians to their fate. Because if it were to be to the contrary, even under the days of the military dictatorship will sit down with aggrieved unions and negotiate, a middle ground. As you can see in the last 7 months, the government is not only lackluster, they are insensitive, they are rude. Even in the public utterances that they make, you wonder whether these people actually live in this country. But our union understands perfectly what is going on. What is going on is that this country is in the hands of imperialist agents, and all they do is to noto to the dictates of their masters who are not within the country.
Now let's talk. Let's speak about your Dr. Ashiru. Let's speak about your colleagues. This is a strike that started on February 14. No one thought it was going to be on for this long. How has it been with members of your union in terms of welfare and caring for their families?
Well, it's been extremely tough for our members, but our members understand that this is a sacrifice that they must make for the survival of the Nigerian university system. This is not the first time the Nigerian academia is being so treated. The unfortunate aspect is that the Nigerian society and the Nigerian state is the greatest loser. As I speak with you, Our members are seeking greener pastures out of the country, and they are leaving these countries in droves. These are people trained with the resources of Nigeria, but Nigeria cannot annex the resources of the people they train, and consequently, they must be forced out of the country. It's been tough for our members, but we salute and commend our members for their courage and for their sacrifice for the survival of the Nigerian university system. We know that in the long run, the truth shall prevail.
Aren't you worried that there could be, a break in the ranks of your union?
Well, we are not worried about that because unlike other strike action, this is one strike action that our members themselves asked for. I told you in the last 12, 13 years, the conditions of service of all of us who teach in the Nigerian university system have remained the same. And when we were to commence this strike on the 14th of February 2022, we asked our members, are you willing to pay the sacrifice to ensure that the Nigerian university system becomes globally competitive? Of course, the answer was an overwhelming yes. And as you can see up till now, in spite of the antics of government.
Well, Dr. Ashiru, it looks like I lost that connection to Dr. Dele Ashiru, who's the chairman of the Academic Staff Union of Nigerian Universities at the University of Lagos. He's been speaking with us on the prolonged strike action by the University Teachers Union in Nigeria that has entered its 7th month and counting. And so far, he's not too happy and excited with the moves by the executive arm of the Nigerian state. He said specifically, I think, well, looks like Dele Ashiru, you're back.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, I lost you for a bit. Good to know that you're back. I was just trying to recap our conversations before you came on. Quickly here, let's start talking about mechanisms, that should be in place to avoiding such. First, before we talk about avoidance, we must see to the end of the strike. What are you all saying that you would love to see before this will be called off?
Well, we have a long list of demands before government, but as we speak, we can narrow our demands into two. The first is the signing and implementation of the Professor Nimik Briggs proposal already before government on the renegotiated 2009 ASUU FGN agreement. There's a proposal before government. All we are waiting for is either a counter proposal or signing and implementation of that, renegotiated agreement. The second is to take us off the now very discredited and very fraudulent IPPIS scheme and deploy the homegrown, very robust and dynamic university transparency and accountability solution developed by our union and handed over to government pro bono. Government gave the challenge that if we say IPPIS is unsuitable for the Nigerian university system, our union should provide alternative. Now we have provided alternative. The government says that it has a policy for homegrown, development. Now this is an homegrown software which has been certified by NIDA to be fit enough to be deployed. Our union is saying that that should be done, and then release white paper on, the reports of the visitation panel to federal universities, and also review the National University Commission law to make it a little bit stringent for state governments to make universities constituency projects. Once all of these items are done, majority of them don't require even money. Our union is prepared to sit with the government with a view to bringing this strike action to a closure. But the government cannot think that it can ride roughshod on our union and say, take it or leave it, and then compel us to go back to work. So that is the situation.
And in today's headlines in the papers, some Nigerian papers, Dr. Chris Ngige again did say specifically that the federal government did not take your union, ASUU, to court. But we understand that there seemed to be a court, issue on this coming up on Wednesday. Help us make sense of that. Is ASUU in court with the government or not?
Yes, ASUU is in court with government, but the statement by the minister tells you how insincere Chris Ngige and the Ministry of Labour and that of Education has been with our union. If a matter before the National Industrial Court in Abuja, for which our lawyer and our union have made 2 appearances, an adjournment made for Wednesday, and the same minister will come on air to say that he didn't take ASUU to court. So who did? Did ASUU just wake up and take itself to court? That tells you the level of insincerity at the level of government, and it's unfortunate.
And let's talk about fees that we pay in some Nigerian universities, and because Nigerians quickly here, Nigerians pay heavy fees to access universities abroad. Help us, Dr. Ashiru, if you will, what's the standard in the world with education?
Well, I can tell you without any fear of equivocation that Nigerian universities can compete favorably with any university in the world if the right accoutrements, the right environment, the right attitude from government is put in place. But unfortunately today, government seem to care less about the state of tertiary education in Nigeria, particularly because having helped themselves with state finances, it is convenient to send their own children abroad and do some other things with a view to relegating education in Nigeria to the background. But we attend conferences all over the world. We compete favorably with other academics all over the world. And our students also do excellently well once they leave the shores of Nigeria. The unfortunate aspect is that we have a government whose priority for education is, to say the least, nil.
Dr. Dele Ashiru, I'd like to thank you for your time, for being such nice company, and we wish you very well in your deliberation with the government.
Thank you very much for your interest in public education in Nigeria and for always bringing our issues to the front burner. We can't thank you enough. We are very grateful for the opportunity. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
You're welcome as always, Dr. Ashiru. Now, coming up on the show, we'll be speaking with Nigerian students that have also taken to the streets, especially in Nigeria's economic capital, asking the government, enough is enough, we want to go back to school. That's when we return. Well, with one of the most talked about elections in the history of the country coming up, Nigerian students are still at home hoping to resume soon. Now, many candidates have been careful about the topic of education and how they will handle ASUU, that's the University Teachers Union in Nigeria. The Nigerian government, past and present, has found this union a hard meat to chew. ASUU demands that education in Nigeria be upgraded to global standards, while the children of politicians and leaders should also study in the country, but the Nigerian government has said it cannot afford such projects in need of heavy financial resources. As both parties continue to stall in agreement, the students who have later to no part in the discussions continue to stay outside the classroom and have their academic lives on pause. Now with me in the studio is Femi Adeyeye, who is the co-convener Fund Education Coalition, and joining me online is Olusesi Tolulope Samson. He's the chairman, National Association of Nigerian Students in Lagos. Gentlemen, good to see you both, and thanks for your time as always. Let's start with Samson. What informed Samson, I can see you. What informed the decision first to block the major points of movement, which many have criticized? Has NANS as a body had an assessment of that decision?
Okay, thank you very much. You see, in our analysis and association, we have what we call 3 C's: consultation, consolidation, and confrontation. And looking at it, we've been trying to make it very lenient with federal government, trying to appeal to them, but we see they've allowed us to exhaust our 2 C's. So we are trying to make use of the last C, which is confrontation, because the protest we had yesterday was a very structured protest. Yes, it was a very structured one, and no single calamity casualty was recorded. Yes, it was a memorable protest. The assessment of the protest was that everybody under the southwest region of National Nigerian Students, led by our national officers, that's by Vice President External Comrade Babatunde, and the PRO National Comrade Issa Giwa, and the Deputy Senate President, Comrade Elvis. They were actually the one that came together to put Nigerian students on Southwest together to ensure we go to the second phase of the protest. The first phase were done last week, where we blocked major highways. So we felt, since they still turn deaf ears, then we still need to re-strategize and bring out more way to make sure that the federal government hears our agitation. So I wanted to know, based on the protest yesterday, it was so perfect because we did our primary assignment very well. Thank you.
Okay, I'll come back to you, Femi. Samson, I beg your pardon. Let's come to you, Femi. Femi, you know, it's been a long journey, yes. And for a lot of people, they feel hard done by being home for this number of weeks and months. Personally, and also looking at your colleagues, your fellow students, how has the strike been for you?
So to say it's been so excruciating, like it's so painful that you have to leave your classrooms for 8 good months would be an understatement. Students are out of school. The workers, even on campus, are also out of work. If you walk into some of those campuses now, for example, in Lagos, University of Lagos, you'll find out that those butteries, those eateries are now, are not functioning. They're just a shadow of themselves. The cab drivers are not working. And this is something that the government must understand. Anytime ASUU goes on strike, it is not just about the lecturers. There are a lot of activities, both economic and social activities that hold on campuses. And so it's a huge thing. Very painful that we would keep having this thing reoccurring every time, due to the irresponsibility and the insensitivity of government. Another thing is that people don't even understand is also that many of these lecturers are also students. Some of them are master's students, some of them are PhD students. So it affects everybody, because sometimes I read online and people try to blackmail us to say, oh, you are just holding our future back, you're doing this. No, many of them are also students.
So you honestly think that there's a blackmail attempt on the union?
Yes, from the government. Yes, from the government. And you can see from every news item, from every statement coming from public officers or public servants, quote and unquote. Now I use that carefully because they're not serving the Nigerian people in the true sense of what it should be. Because in a serious country, no university or no institution of learning where research, development, innovation should come from should be shut for 8 months. It's unquestionable. You can't just explain that. So there's a blackmail coming from them, and you could see where the Professor Skiyamo was saying, oh, parents should beg ASUU. He also came back to say, okay, we've settled everything. I mean, Adamu, we've settled everything, but ASUU should just allow us not pay the 6 months salary when they went on strike for the period they've gone on strike. And many of those, blackmail just to paint ASUU as a union bad before the Nigerian people. What we are saying is that this blackmail is not going to work, because it is now clear to the Nigerian people, it's clear to the students, it's clear to the masses, our parents, everybody, that it is government that has continued to be disloyal and infidel to the promises that they willfully entered without a gun put to their head.
And lastly, Femi, before I go to Samson, you painted a picture, and for anyone who's ever been to a Nigerian university,
yes,
you understand that it's a community. And now you're saying the ripple effect of that strike action is not just on the lecturers, but on the communities where we have these institutions.
Definitely.
Is that an understanding that you also get from the government when you hear the government speak?
Understanding like?
That this is beyond ASUU?
No, it is, when you fix what you need to fix, you solve many of these problems. Like I was saying in my introduction, that when ASUU goes on strike, a lot of activities go down on our campuses, economic activities. In fact, some of our students, their parents, they sell books on campus, but now they can't feed. So these are serious issues. But another thing that ASUU does before they go on strike is to consult widely. They meet with government, they do all of those things. So they don't just go on strike because they feel like going on strike. Our lecturers are hardworking. They want to work. So this old blackmail of, they just want to go on strike because it's election season and all of that should not be the issue for any serious and responsible government. So the issue is that government should do what is appropriate. You see, at some point they moved from memorandum of understanding, and that's why I find this government very funny, successive government anyways. It was memorandum of understanding, they moved from there, they changed the semantics, changed it to memorandum of action, and you would think they were going to take any action as regards, the change of semantics. We then found out that it's just some kind of charade to make the whole thing seem as if they are doing something serious. So the blackmail should, every of this, blame should end at the corridor of power.
Let's come to you, Samson. Looking at students, out there talking about the strike action, the protest stations, the negotiations or meetings have students held, the government back. Now, take us through the actions so far. We understand that there is a next step, the highways, the ways, roads leading up to the airport, and nothing has given. What more are you looking to doing to ensuring that the government listens to your demands?
Okay, thank you very much. You see, concerning what we will still do for government to listen to our cry, we will still lock down more federal government parastatals. Yes, we are still going to lock down federal government house. We're supposed to be at Apapa today, but we're supposed to be at Apapa today to lock down Apapa also. But due to an information that came telling us, Right Honorable Speaker House of Representatives, that Right Honorable Bajabi Amila is meeting the ASUU management today. So we expect their outcome. I want to assure you and say it emphatically, if the action is not negative is not positive, or if it is negative, then they should expect us anytime soon for something more, how will I put it, more stronger than what we did yesterday.
Paint us a picture, Samson, if you will, about the conduct of these protests. You've always had security operatives keeping watch over such protests. How has it been with the presence of the police officers and other security agents when you go out?
Oh, yeah, I think there are rules, there are protocols to follow when we want to go out. Yes, when we want to go out as Nigerian students on the street, we call the security agencies, we call the policemen, we call the Department of State Securities. So they would come and give us a proper security. As you can see, those policemen, they were standing. We were going to meet them and we were telling them nothing is going to happen. We've structured this protest. And after the protest yesterday, the policeman came and gave me a handshake and told me, wow, you guys really tried. There was no casualties at all. We said yes, because we ourselves are seeing it now that we need to take our lives serious, because the way federal government are doing it, they don't even want to care about the sons and daughters of the common men. So the stand of the police and DSS was not to disrupt our protest. Yes, they were just there to support us, to ensure that the protest was not being hijacked by probably the hoodlums or
and Samson, before I come back to the studio, I was going to ask that same question. Aren't you worried of a possible hijack?
The reason why concerning the possible hijack was because of each and every one of us knows ourselves. Yes, that was what I was saying. The protest that was held yesterday was a very structured one. When we saw people, externals coming in, it goes to a stage where I had to climb on my car and address the student that if you are a student and you are here for this protest, join us at the back here. So they came. So we were able to separate externals from the students. So the protest yesterday was a very structured one.
All right, okay. Femi, tell us about the Fund Education Coalition, because is it something that would also be able to help as a palliative or as a remedy to what ASUU and the government are going through?
All right. Can I quickly just take a swipe at what my comrade said before going into the discussion? You see, if there's going to be any hijack, it's going to be by the government. Let's be very careful. We've seen what happened during the NSAS. We've seen how several civil unrest in this country, civil disobedience, how they play out. So, because they can come up with this, other time and then say, okay, it was hijacked. And it is only when you want to do protests in this country that the government will come up with this idea of, oh, it will be hijacked. But if it were to be a political rally of the ruling party, nobody will talk about hijack. So please, so that's the point I think my comrade need to
in other words, when we talk about a hijack, it's usually the hand of government.
Definitely. We saw what happened during NSAS. How hoodlums, the people they call hoodlums, though they call them political thugs during elections, these names keep changing depending on how they need to use them at that particular time. But we saw them being ferried down to the protest ground in Lagos State buses. We saw all of that. In Abuja, DSS officers were moving with thugs to disrupt protests. But what I'm just trying to say here is
established?
Yes, established. There are video evidences to all of this. So what I'm just trying to say in all of this, that we should not fall for that blackmail of, possible hijack, or when will it happen. And another thing is this. It is an established fact, even in law, that the duty of the police is to come to a protest and safeguard the protesters. So if you inform the police, fine. If you don't inform the police, fine. It was established as far back as 2003 and 2007, ANPP, when Femi Falana went to court, when the president was tear-gassed and Okadibo were tear-gassed at that time. So it was established that you do not need a police permit to go on protest. So I just said I should answer that. Then let me go down to the Fund Education Coalition. It's a coalition of Nigerian students, trade union allies. We have left groups across the country who are pushing for a common goal, which is that education needs to be properly funded in this country. Education must be seen by the government as a social investment. That's the problem. I think that's the missing link. We are not just coming out as a coalition because we need ASUU strike to end, and then after another year, you come back again for the same thing. It's a movement that education needs to be funded, at least to the 26% budgetary allocation recommended by UNESCO. Because it is so, if you come to some of our universities, it's an eyesore. It's an eyesore where we sleep. If animals were placed in those places, they would protest. They would protest. I have been in a laboratory before when the technician was telling us, a civil engineering laboratory, was telling us that, see, this machine you're about to use will not give you the correct results. Because the last time we serviced this machine, or this machine was brought to this place, was in 1986. That's in a civil engineering laboratory. So he said, see, let me just give you readings. Go and tabulate these readings and write your reports. Don't bother about using this machine. Yet we expect that we'll produce civil engineers that will build our bridges. It's not going to work. So the Fund Education Coalition is not just a coalition for the moment. It's a movement that is saying we need to fund education. Government needs to see education as a social investment. And instead of bailing out their friends, instead of, just today I read before coming to this place, how Dangote and Honeywell got tax waivers of 16 trillion. 16 trillion. So yet they will come back to tell us that Nigeria is broke, there's no money. Yet you give tax waivers to your friends, the elite class. But how much is ASUU asking for? 1.3 trillion. They've been asking for this money since 2013. And they're not even asking for 1.3 trillion at once. They're saying, please, you can spread it and pay in 6 tranches. So since 2013, they only paid once, 200 billion. After 2013, they paid 20 billion. And ASUU rejected it, that you can't do 20 billion. And then they said, and even ASUU was even reasonable to say, give us half of the 220 billion you need to bring. That's 110 billion. And that was where the whole thing, started. So it is just beyond now. Because if you don't fix education in this country, you are better just start building more prisons, because that's the opposite.
And now, we just had elections in Kenya, and
Yes.
And another one in Angola. And South Africa is also preparing, just as Nigeria is preparing for the 2023 election. And Africans are saying, especially Nigerians, are saying, how can we make the next election issues-based? Because some of the key things you're addressing now should form campaigns.
Yes.
So,
in an ideal society.
So how can you make it an ideal society by ensuring that the next election process sees, to all of these, gaps?
You see, in an ideal society, let me start with this. The strike, especially in an electioneering period like this, would not linger this long. But it's just to tell you that the ruling party are not actually interested in issues. Because if they were interested in issues, they would tackle the issue that would make them lose the election. But they are not concerned about that constituency. They know where they are going to get the votes from, and they're targeting those people. And that is why when you see the presidential candidate of the ruling party, everything he talks about is Ewa Gari, Ewa Agbado. He knows the people he's talking to. He knows. Sometimes we think these things just happen because of maybe some kind of sickness. I don't want to go into all of that. But he is targeting a constituency that does not believe in some of these things that we're talking about. So, but what will we be doing?
Part of the issues.
Yeah, I would agree. Anyways. But what we are saying at this level is that even at the level of the Fund Education Coalition, we would like to sit with all presidential candidates. All of them. Yes. And, put forward our charter of demands that this is what we want. This is what the Nigerian students want our university to look like. We don't just want to have people who would go to the university and then will come out unemployable. Because it's becoming the story. It's becoming the story. We can't continue to blame ourselves for the failure that we get. For example, look at it this way. Someone who has left classroom 8 months ago, ASUU would call off strike and then he will go back to school. Do you think that person can remember anything that he was taught? The only thing that would happen at that time is lecturers would just rush you. Okay, let's just do these exams. La cram, la poor, la rights, la graduates, la get back into the society, la everything down. And everything keeps going down the drain. Everything keeps going down the drain. So it is going to be issue-based if the media also would assist in this discussion. And it's looking like that anyways. Because yesterday I saw the video of Aledeh right here speaking to some of these issues. Yes. So we as a coalition also, as a movement, will be sitting with all of these persons and will be putting before them the Charter of Demands. And it is from there we would make it very clear to the Nigerian students, those who have their interest at heart.
I'll come back to you so that we can close on the charter of demands and see how we can put them on the scale, which comes first.
All right.
And quickly here, Samson, your closing comments, how can these be resolved? You know, across board, successive Nigerian governments haven't, shown a desire to totally upgrade the education sector. You've listened to Femi, but there's the TED Fund and other grants. So who keeps the universities accountable, Samson? I think you have to unmute your microphone, Sam.
All right, that question, who keeps the universities accountable from the funds that comes from TED funds and some other education trust funds? I believe the fund goes to the schools directly. Yes, and that mostly is being done to beautify, to build more infrastructure, to develop the school infrastructure, and probably support the school in getting some other things. It is different from that of what the ASUU are clamoring, their salaries to be increased. Then it is a very different thing. So concerning that, the money coming from the TED fund going to the schools, I believe the schools management should be able to account for that themselves.
All right, okay, Samson, I'd like to thank you for your time. Let's come back to the studios, and Femi, let's put that, let's bring the scale now. The talking points for politicians as they start the campaigns any moment from now. What are the most important three things as a Nigerian student or an activist that you would love to see being taken up by these presidential candidates?
All right, let me say very clearly that as we move into this whole season, the first question we will be posing to all presidential candidates is this, very clear, and I hope all of them are listening now. Who should fund education? Who should pay for education? That's the first question. We've been listening to some of them who are saying they will privatize, I think we also mentioned it on a particular podium that, using the US model of how they run their universities over there, privatize these things, because that's what he has been doing anyways. But everybody keeps talking about the US. Nobody talks about the Nordic model. Nobody talks about the Scandinavian countries where education is free, where people even get paid to go to the university. Because what happens there is that the government has seen education as an investment in their people. Because when you invest into people, it's more than oil. Human resource is the biggest resource you can get anywhere in the world. It is more than oil that can dry up anytime. Do you get? So that's the first question. Another question is, what's the budget going to look like for education? We are proposing the 26. In fact, it should be more than that for any serious country, because research, innovation, development can come when society is in problem. The politicians, the thought leaders,
it must be upgraded to about 26.
Upgraded.
So what should be the third one?
So the third thing is the lecturer and the student relationship on campus. That's the third thing. You asked the question about who follows the money.
Yes.
Someone who follows the money. Normally, on there was a committee that was set up called the University Budget Monitoring Committee. And on that committee, you should have a student representative. Because students actually are the largest demography on that campus. How many are our lecturers? They are not as many as the students. But then if we claim that we are practicing democracy, the majority actually should be represented, but they are not represented. So the democratization of the university system is also the third most important thing that would...
Femi, I'd like to have you back again so that we can talk more, especially on issues-based campaign and what young Nigerians want out there. And of course, so that the country should not have a repeat of NSAS if the students and young Nigerians must be listened to. So I'd like to thank you for being such nice company, Femi, Adeyeye, and Tolulope Samson. It's a wrap on the show. You can get to watch this again on our YouTube channel. I'm Sulaiman. Many thanks for watching.